Project Boro is now available as a podcast on your chosen podcast providers, so you can listen to every episode on the go. Simply go to the description of this video, click the link to the podcast provider of your choice, and subscribe or follow Project Boro, and you'll be able to find all episodes past, present and future right there for you to listen to on the go. A win in the EFL Cup giving Boro a ginormous chance to make a semi-final of a major tournament, and an incredibly enjoyable game down at Plymouth where Boro maybe dropped 2 points, or maybe it was a point gained.
As the Uruguayan curls one in. Oh, Middlesbrough take the lead!
What is up guys, Matthew here, welcome to another episode of Project Boro. Today we're looking at two games. In this episode we are going to quickly touch upon the EFL Cup win in midweek away at Exeter, because of course Boro have had not one but two trips down to Devon this week, which is insane. We've had trips all the way down to Exeter in midweek in the EFL Cup, and then once again straight back down for the weekend down at Plymouth, which is an absolutely crazy round of fixtures. And I just want to give a quick shout out to the fans, because travelling to just one of them fixtures was crazy enough, especially the one in midweek, but to any fan who's travelled to both, unbelievable. Boro fans sold out both away allocations in both League and Cup, travelled all the way down the country and back. Incredible effort from all involved. So yeah, just wanted to big up the Boro fans who made the trip, because that just shows how much of a good fan base we are. As for the League Cup game that we had away to Exeter, I mean, on paper, as I said, Boro, we got probably one of the easier draws, getting Exeter at this stage with still tons of Premier League sides left in the competition. I think Exeter, along with Mansfield and Port Vale, were the three lowest ranked sides left in the competition, and then the other two played each other. So Boro pretty much got the second best prize in terms of this draw, but we still had to go down there and do a job. And trust me, I've seen on enough occasions Middlesbrough Football Club get to the latter stage of a competition and play a lower league opposition with an open goal to make it into the quarterfinals or the semi-finals and absolutely bottle it. I've seen us lose at home to Burton when we could have been, I think, into the quarterfinals of the League Cup or FA Cup a few seasons ago. The biggest one is when we, of course, lost to Cardiff in the FA Cup quarterfinals when we were in the Premier League and they were in the Championship. And in the semi-finals, we had Portsmouth, Barnsley and West Ham, I think. And that would probably be the greatest chance we've ever had of winning an FA Cup, and we bottled the quarterfinals on that stage. So I am more than familiar with Boro getting to this stage, facing an opposition we should be beating, and us slipping up. But not on this occasion. Boro went down to Exeter and come away victorious and have booked a place in the quarterfinals. Get this, against Port Vale. Yes, one of the other lowest ranked sides, and in fact in the last 8, 6 of the sides left are Premier League teams, and they're all playing each other, leaving Boro and Port Vale, the two lone remaining EFL clubs, to face each other, guaranteeing one of us will get into the last 4 of the League Cup, which is insane. What an opportunity that is for Boro, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. This, though, was a very good performance by Boro under very tough circumstances. I think looking at all the circumstances around it, Exeter sold out. Obviously, the crowd's going to be right up for it. It was absolutely hoeing it down with rain. I mean, it was just, nailed. It was all lined up to be a potential huge banana skin for Boro, but we got the job done in the end. And to be fair, we dominated possession throughout. We created far more chances. Exeter's XG was non-existent for the most part. But in that first half, we just didn't get going, really, and for all the possession we had, we didn't really create much, and Exeter managed to take the lead through an absolute screamer. And this is just another one in the long list of screamers that Boro have conceded this season that are ridiculously low when it comes to XG. And this was another one. You can't take anything away from Trevitt. The strike on the turn, he's sort of 90 degrees on the goal, and the fact he manages to wrap his foot around it, ping it into the top corner, goes in off the bar, unbelievable strike. And you're looking at it and thinking, this is typical Boro. 1-0 down to Exeter, who've barely laid a glove on us, and yet we've had all the ball and done bugger all with it. And you did really worried that we might be in for one of them real upsets. We're going to get FM'd, football managered, if you guys understand the reference. But thankfully, in the second half, Boro decided to come out and score a couple of screamers of their own. Morgan Rogers with an absolute cracker, which put us level, and he's been amazing. You know, the impact he's made in games, scoring and assists and his goal contributions. Compared to the number of minutes he's played, I think Morgan Rogers has gone under the radar a little bit this season. And then not too long afterwards, Sammy Silvera, who of course I've mentioned many times, he put a fantastic finish away once again. Another great goal from him, a great bend into the far corner, put us 2-1 up. It's still though, despite you thinking that Boro were ahead, dominating, comfortable, Exeter went and scored another screamer, because of course they did. That's the story of Boro's season. Take a shot from miles out, it'll find its way into the Boro net, and that's what happened. Trevitt once again with a shot from outside the area, took a wicked deflection and found its way back into the back of Boro's net. And suddenly you're thinking to yourself, they've had 2 shots on target, they've scored with both, it's 2-2, this is going to penalties. But thankfully Boro avoided that near miss, you could call it, with Emmanuel Latelath putting away a penalty in the 82nd minute after Morgan Rogers was blatantly pulled down in the box, and Boro managed to escort their way through into the last 8 of the League Cup. And as I say, this could have been a really, really tricky day at the office. The goals that were scored by both sides were outstanding, but you can't deny that with possession, the control, the chances created, Boro more than deserved the win here. The momentum was with Boro throughout. The possession, 72% to 28. Their XG was 0.3. Like I said, they scored with only 2 shots on goal. Boro had 19 shots and 8 on target and 4 times more passes. It would have been just the most frustrating and annoying defeat if Boro had lost that game, but we didn't. And it sets us up, as I say, a game against Port Vale, which I'm sure we'll talk about closer to the time. But given the fact that Boro have avoided Newcastle and Chelsea, who play each other, Fulham and Everton, who play each other, Liverpool and West Ham, who play each other, what an opportunity for Boro and, of course, Port Vale to potentially get themselves into the semi-final of the League Cup. So it's an unbelievable, exciting time for both clubs and for us. If we can negotiate that tricky away game like we did this one, we'll have a 2-legged semi-final in the League Cup against a Premier League side, with the chance to go to Wembley and our first major final domestically, well, since we won the League Cup 20 years ago. How about that? And then we move on to Boro's game in the Championship this weekend, which was away to Plymouth Argyle, and this was a fantastic game to watch. If you're a neutral, this game was unbelievable. You had 2 sides who were very attacking, very free-flowing, play liquid football, really nice on the eye, chance creators galore, and it was an unbelievable game. Both sides didn't disappoint, just end-to-end stuff, chance after chance after chance. And I'm going to get into why I think it was both a point gain for Boro and 2 points dropped, but just in the context of the game, I mean, this on another day could have finished 5-5. It could have finished 5-1 to Plymouth. It could have finished 5-1 to Boro. It was just one of them games where it's a flip of a coin who could come away with the 3 points. And I think overall, because of that, I think there is, from that context, Boro will be happy they come away from Home Park with a point when they could have quite easily lost it on another day, because Home Park's a tough place to go and Plymouth are a tough side to play at home, and a very good side as well, I may add. But at the same time, there's also a very, very, very big feeling of 2 points dropped, and that's nothing against Plymouth. It's no disrespect to them at all, because I thought they played outstanding and it was an unbelievable game to watch, and as I say, they did amazing and were brilliant throughout. But the chances Boro created, the fact we had the chances we did, the fact we led twice, you can't help but look at it from that point of view and say it was 2 points dropped, because we created so many chances, and ideally we should have put the game to bed before, the second half essentially. And 2 of Plymouth's goals, and again, this follows the same theme that we've had with Exeter and many other games this season, 2 of Plymouth's goals were absolutely ridiculous from miles out, which you could argue could have been helped and prevented by Boro's defence, but at the same time you look at them and say, how often do they go in? If they were to take that shot 10 times, how many times would it go in? And that's another frustrating thing. You could argue, yes, Plymouth took the chances. But Boro didn't give them any chances. They just scored from a free kick that was, miles out, that found its way into the corner. And, I think it was Azaz scored an absolutely wonderful curler into the far corner as well. So there's an argument for both. But Michael Carrick, he thought it was 2 points dropped. And, as much as Plymouth deserved credit and probably did deserve something out of the game because of the goals they scored and the chances they took and how well they played in spells, I think Boro probably deserved it just that little bit more. And yeah, it's one of them, depending on which way you look at it. But taking a deeper look into the game, it started off more so in Plymouth's favour. I thought they looked very, very bright in the opening 10 to 15 minutes or so. They looked very, very good on the ball, played some really, really good passing moves, and they were a joy to watch. If it wasn't Boro that I was watching and supporting, I would have been sat there watching Plymouth and really, really enjoying what I was watching. And they should have got in front really, really early. They played some wonderful football down the left. Bali Mumba, who is an absolute star, I have to say, for Plymouth. He is a ridiculous talent. He cut inside, went round Seni Dieng, should have scored, and Seni did unbelievably well to, save the shot and get back in front of Mumba and stop him from converting it into what was pretty much an empty net. And, for all the chances Boro went on to create later in the game, we should have really been 1-0 down really early, and that changes game state and changes everything. So, that was a real, I think, tipping point in the early stages of this game. And Boro gradually managed to get themselves into the game and started playing some really good football after that, avoiding, conceding an early goal. And it was Boro who took the lead. Josh Coburn with a wonderful finish at the near post. Boro worked the ball, put a cross in, it was deflected, it was headed out. We recycled possession. Hackney played it into Lucas Engel, and Engel's cross, as you'd expect from him, and it's exactly what he's been brought in to do, was absolutely pinpoint to the near post. And fair play to Josh Coburn. He's been criticised a little bit lately that he's not affected games as much when it comes to his numbers. And yeah, him getting on the score sheet there at the near post, he made the right run, tipped it in past the goalkeeper and gave Boro the lead against the club he was meant to go on loan to as well. It was just written in the stars, and getting that first goal was massive for Boro, and it gave us a platform to go from. And unfortunately, despite Boro having a really good 10-minute spell after scoring and having a number of chances where we really should have put the game to bed at that point, we should have been 2-up with some of the chances we had. We didn't take advantage, and we allowed Plymouth to get themselves back into the game, and it was Bali Mumba who did get the equaliser, and this was a wonderfully worked move from Plymouth. From one side to the other, they just kept playing it from right to left, dragging Boro players in. Rav Vandenberg leaving Bali Mumba on his own on the right hand side, and it was a very good finish by the youngster who terrorised Rav in that first half. He was flicking it, he was flicks and tricks, and he was running at him, cutting inside. He was an absolute menace, and you could just sense a goal was going to come for Mumba, and it was a very well taken finish. And to be fair to Plymouth at that point, they'd come back into the game, and you could say Boro edged it in terms of the chances, but you couldn't have any arguments that they levelled the scoring. But it got worse for Boro as 3 minutes later, Azaz scored an absolute beauty of a curler. And this is another one of them goals that you look at and say, how often would that bend perfectly into the far corner? And it come from nothing, but you have to maybe say, again, like a lot of the goals Boro have conceded from range and outside the area, no one closing him down, no one trying to stop the shot. Rav was tracking him, but I don't know if the run from Morgan Whittaker, the overlap, distracted Rav and he stopped and worried about Whittaker. He should have just committed to the man who had the ball. But either way, Azaz still bent it beautifully into the far corner, and from absolutely nothing, Plymouth had turned the game on its head, and it was a game that arguably was a level game that they then went into half-time leading at 2-1. And I was a little bit worried after that. I really did feel like if Plymouth build a head of steam, I couldn't see how Boro get themselves back into the game. But as we do, and as we have done so often this season, and like we did against Exeter, second half FC come out to play in the second half, and it was Josh Coburn who got his second, and it did come from a penalty, and it was definitely a penalty. It might have been Hayden Hackney who was brought down in the box. It was either him or Sam Greenwood, I can't quite remember, but blatant penalty. The defender knew it as soon as he made the challenge, And it is worth saying, Boro come out of the block second half and were absolutely outstanding. You know, the first 15-20 minute spell from Boro in that second half was amazing, and it was just a matter of time before Boro got their reward and got the goal. Coburn stepped up, penalty was saved, so there was a degree of luck that he was there to tap on the rebound, but I think given the fact Plymouth had scored an absolute screamer at one end, I think Boro deserved that little bit of luck. They deserved to level up the game and then obviously go on to take the lead. Only a matter of minutes later, because Sam Greenwood, who hadn't had the best of games up until that point, did put Boro 3-2 up, and this was a delightful move down the right-hand side. Crooks and Jones linking up well. Once again, Crooks in that little half space that he often picks up. A great cut back to Sam Greenwood, who calmly put the ball into the far corner. And for the second time, Boro led in this game, having also come from behind after such a dominant spell. And then after that, the game levelled out, and it was then a bit more of a basketball match once again, and the control Boro had early second half dissipated a bit as Plymouth then obviously come back into the game. And I always expected there'd be another goal in this game. It was just so open. Both teams were so attacking and creating so many opportunities. For me, and I felt it was either going to be a 4-2 to Boro, who would catch Plymouth on the counter, or they would find an equaliser. And it's just frustrating that the equaliser come in the manner it did. It wasn't a well-worked goal like Mumba's. You know, it wasn't a screamer like Azaz's. It was just one of them awkward in-swinging free kicks that, you know, was perfectly in between defence and goalkeeper. Engel misses his header, Seni hesitates, and it somehow finds its way into the far corner. And it's another avoidable, low XG goal that wouldn't go in 9 times out of 10, but on this occasion it does, and Plymouth level the game, and it is back to 3-3. And again, at that point, it's a case of who can find a winner. Flip of a coin, it could have gone either way, but it didn't. And they had a shot saved towards the end. Rogers had a shot saved. And I think when the full-time whistle went, everyone just sort of took a breath and was like, wow, that was a crazy game of football. And I think both sides would be relieved that they didn't lose the game. But for Boro, yeah, it's a good point. Don't get me wrong. Travelling to Plymouth, very good at home. It's a very, very good point. But if you score 3 goals, you should win the game. And Boro didn't on this occasion, partly down to not great defending, and I think being a little bit unlucky as well. So it's no wins in 2 for Boro. It's a good point on the road, but certainly in the context of the game, it's 2 points dropped, having led twice. Looking at the team then, it was, I believe, pretty much an unchanged side from Stoke last week. From what I remember, Dieng was in goal. We had Vandenberg in once again with Fry McNair as the centre-back pairing, with Lenihan still out. Engel on the left with Howson and Hackney in the midfield too. We had Greenwood, Crooks and Jones, and Josh Coburn up front. And quickly running through the Boro team, I think Dieng made some good saves throughout, and I think he couldn't have done much for the opening 2 goals, but there is an argument that, you know, he could have committed, you know, to getting something on Morgan Whittaker's free kick to keep it out, and that might have been the difference between Boro winning and drawing this game. So yeah, he'll be a bit disappointed with that, Seni, and of course to concede 3 goals. I think Rav had a tough game. He certainly got better as the second half went on, but in the first half, Bali Mumba had him on toast, and especially when he got booked second half, I was a little bit worried that Rav might have gotten enticed by Mumba and into a challenge that might have got him sent off. But he had a bit more of a composed, solid second half performance, but you could argue, you know, he wasn't positioned correctly for Mumba's first goal, and he should have closed down Azaz for their second goal. The centre-back pairing, I think, did all right, weren't at fault for any of the goals. It's just, again, and I feel like I've said this 1,000 times this season, it's what's happened collectively, what's happened around them, the goals that have gone in, so it's not a fault on them, but like Dieng, they've let 3 goals in essentially, and Engel did well. I think Engel was, once again, a really, really good outlet down the left-hand side, got himself an assist as well, and overall looked like a menace, and looked good defensively as well. The midfield too, not much to say on either of them. They did alright. I wouldn't say they had great performances, I wouldn't say they bossed the midfield, obviously looked very good when we had that spell in the second half, but yeah, nothing really to say about Howson and Hackney. And then the front 4, I think Greenwood, I think he did okay first half. I was thinking that maybe he could have been brought off for for Morgan Rogers. Again, as he does in games, he struggles to get into it. He holds on to the ball too long, loses possession a bit too often, but obviously redeemed himself with a very, very well taken finish. Crooks, as he has been lately, was absolutely fantastic, holding up the ball, keeping the moves going. He got a great assist in the second half for Greenwood's goal as well, which was absolutely fantastic for Crooks. I was delighted for him. Asai was on and off. I think there were times where he really looked good on that right-hand side and gave their defenders a lot to think about. He was key in some of Borough's goals, but there were also times where, his crossing wasn't quite at it. But overall, I'd say Asai Jones did well enough. And I think Josh Coburn, who's not had, he's sort of been left out when you look at Borough's great form of late. He's the one player that people have looked at and thought, he's the anomaly, he's, the one that's out of place, the one where we could improve, and there has been calls for Lath to come in and replace him, but I thought Coburn did really well. I think he gave their centre-backs a real torrid time today, which we can't say about some of the centre-backs he's come up against of late. Of course, he got a brace, which is great for him. Got a bit lucky with his penalty, of course, but yeah, overall I thought was a bit more of a menace and was more effective up top on his own. And maybe there'll be certain games where, the defenders he plays against and the team we're up against is, more catered to his strengths, and other games where they're not. So again, as I keep saying about Coburn, we can't expect this from him every week, but he did well today, and that's all you can ask from him. Substitution wise, Boro made 3 subs, and I wouldn't say any had enough time to make much of an impact. Lath, Rogers and Silvera, I wouldn't say had much time to make an impact. I would have probably brought Rogers and Lath on a bit earlier, and probably Silvera too, but the nature of the game was just utter chaos. So yeah, anything could have happened in that final 10 to 15 minutes. And then finally, looking at the championship table, it is no wins in 2 for Boro, and I guess with Leicester coming up next weekend, you might be staring no wins in 3. And I was getting a bit worried when we were losing this game that we might be staring 3 defeats in a row, which would have been absolutely awful. And if you play this game 100 times, I say 50 times Boro win it, 50 times Plymouth win it. So quite easily, Boro might be looking at 3 defeats in a row with Leicester coming up. So that's why I'm grateful for this point, but at the same time, that really strong momentum we had going a few weeks ago has levelled out a bit now, and we sit 11th in the table and 4 points off the playoffs. So not quite in touching distance of the playoffs as we were a couple of games ago. And like I say, we've got Leicester coming up, who did lose to Leeds on Friday night, which maybe will play a part in helping Boro maybe get one over on them now that their winning streak is over. But let's not forget, we are playing still, I think, the best championship side at this point in the season ever. So yeah, that's the last game before we go into another international break, and it would be horrible to go into it off of a defeat, especially if Leicester absolutely batter us, and if we don't defend in the way we should, they will absolutely destroy us. And I think if we defend like we did today, I just can't see how we're going to score enough at the other end to get something from Leicester. I think we equally had the firepower to get a 3-3 out of this game, but we'd have to defend much better and be a lot more, I think, wary and cautious of Leicester's strengths if we are to get anything from that game next weekend, which will be an interesting one. It would be typical Boro for us to get that win and beat Leicester before the international break, and all is rosy, but it would be a shame to go into it without a win in 3 after a humbling defeat to Leicester. So here's hoping we can pick up something from that game and not come away from it humiliated or well beaten, because we want to go into the international break with some form of momentum. And it feels like, unfortunately, recently we've not lost momentum, but we have just levelled out a little bit. And I think it's safe to say, given our poor start to the season, the great run we had after that, we are very much an 11th place side at this moment in time. So hopefully we can find a few more runs like we did a few weeks ago to help us nod into the playoffs. But as it stands, Boro sat in mid-table, and I'm hoping we can kick on after the international break. But there are some very, very tough games coming up. But we're going to leave it there, guys. Lots to discuss in this video. That's my thoughts on both Exeter and the Plymouth games. Do let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you are a Boro fan, a Plymouth fan, or a fan of any other club, and your thoughts on your team and Boro, essentially, over the last 2 games. And as always, we'll be back next weekend with a recap of Boro's home game against Leicester, where I'm hoping we can pull off something special. It would be typical of Boro to do that, but it will be an enormous test against the league leaders. But until then, a big thank you for watching, guys. Do take care. I'll see you all next time.